everyone, it's Sammy from Sammy's Sweet Life, and today we are making a flag cake. This is a super easy, delicious, and show-stopping easy recipe. It looks like you put a lot of effort into it, but it's so easy. I'm gonna walk you through all the steps. You just need some cookie dough for the cookie layer at the bottom. It's just a cookie, stabilized whipped cream, and fruit. You can make it for pretty much any holiday, whatever picture you want to make out of it. I happen to do an American flag because recently we took this to a holiday party and it turned out really well. It was a big hit, especially with the kids because they are eating cookies, you know, but it also has fruit on it too, so it's a tiny bit healthy. And so the times I've made it before, I have just used the refrigerated cookie dough that comes in the tube. My grocery store happened to be out this time, so I spent an afternoon yesterday with Olivia making the cookie part of it. So we just used a sugar cookie recipe we found online and made it completely from scratch. You do not have to do that. You can totally use the refrigerator cookie dough. I've done that in the past, but in this case we just didn't have much of an option, so we used our resources and came up with a recipe. I will link to the sugar cookie recipe I found below. If you want to make this completely from scratch, you can use that recipe. And so basically we just followed that recipe according to directions. I put some parchment down, and then I also greased the edges of the pan with some butter. I just ran some butter over the edges, squished all the cookie dough into the pan, and then baked it until the edges were lightly golden brown and the middle was set. And then I let it cool completely, and in my case it cooled yesterday and we're assembling today, but you can totally just assemble and bake the same day. You just have to let it cool completely because you don't want your whipped cream to melt. That's the only thing. So definitely let it cool all the way. That's pretty much the hardest step, is waiting for the cake to cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop into the video. I'll walk you through all the steps. We are gonna start with the baked cookie sheet already done. So I already explained that portion of it, but let's go ahead and jump into the video and I'll show you how to make this cute little cake. While your cookie cake sheet pan is cooling, you can do the next couple steps. First, I washed and air dried my berries. I did have to kind of tap the strawberries off just a little bit and roll them around to get them a little bit drier than the rest, but the rest just kind of air dried. And so they're just here waiting. Now you're gonna make our stabilized whipped cream. And now I absolutely love whipped cream in a cream whipper, but you cannot use this for the recipe because this is not stabilized whipped cream. You have to include another additional ingredient. You can do this in a lot of different ways. The way I found I like best is using just some instant pudding. It's just a little box of, you know, Jello. It could be any kind of brand, but I happen to have vanilla this time. I have done this also with their cheesecake flavor, which is also really, really good. So it just depends on what you like. It does add a little bit of a flavor to the whipped cream, which actually adds a nice little depth of flavor. I will be putting the rest of this in the cream whipper. I do have a tutorial for how to use this if you're interested. This is a great way to make just fresh whipped cream, but it just doesn't work for a recipe like this. Ideally, you would want to make your stabilized whipped cream with a big giant mixer. So I do have a KitchenAid mixer. You can do this with a handheld mixer. You can also do this with a whisk, but it just is a lot of arm work. So I go ahead and pull out the big guns for this. So we've got the mixer here. You're going to want your whisk attachment. I want to say this one will take so much longer to use. I would not recommend trying it with just the paddle attachment. And recently I tried to use this one. It's a paddle attachment that scrapes the edges. This one's great for making things like cookie dough and that kind of thing, but it is horrible for making anything super liquidy. It starts out, you know, as a complete liquid, so this one will just splatter it everywhere, which I learned the hard way. So do not use either one of these. Just go ahead and grab your whisk attachment for this. So I set those other ones aside. We're gonna go ahead and attach this guy, and we're going to add however much you want. For this recipe, I end up using 2 cups. So the ratio you can build up. So it is 1 cup of heavy whipping cream to 1 tablespoon of powdered sugar and 1 tablespoon of your pudding of any, you know, instant variety. It's just instant gelatin. So I'm going to go ahead and open everything up so we are ready to roll. So I'm going to do 2 of everything. So 2 cups of the whipping cream, 2 tablespoons of the powdered sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of the instant pudding mix. So we're going to go ahead and just start adding things in, and then you just whip it until it is nice and whipped up. And I go ahead and add everything in. I haven't had problems doing it that way. So there is 1 cup. Some people tend to add like the gelatin a little bit later, or the powdered sugar a little bit later, but I haven't found it makes any difference. It still just takes a really long time to whip up the cream. So there are the 2 cups of cream. Just setting things in the sink. And then 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. Running a little bit low here. Okay. And then 2 tablespoons of the pudding. And again, I used cheesecake, I used the white chocolate instant pudding. They all work really well for this. But that's your ratio, 1 cup to 1 tablespoon to 1 tablespoon. And you can build it up from there. And like I said, the rest of this is going in the cream whipper, so I'm gonna go ahead and pour it in here and stick it in the fridge, and I will charge this later. And when you're first starting this, definitely make sure to take it slow originally to make sure you're not going to splatter it up, and then you can build up the speed. It's much easier to do with the whisk attachment than the other attachments. But you're going to want to start going fast to build up the air. So this is what it looks like. It is nice and thick. So you want to make sure that it holds its shape so it can be piped and it will hold its shape and not go flat. This is what it looks like. It's very nice and thick and luxurious, and I'm just going to scrape it out of this whisk attachment, and then I'll show you how we get it ready to go, and then it's just going to be assembly time. Okay, for this next part, you're going to want to have a piping bag and a piping tip. This actually came from a little set of cupcake tips. These are bigger tips than some of the ones that you find in sets. They are very large. So this one happens to be the 4B by Wilton. This set had 4 different ones, and it shows the little designs on the back. I'm pretty sure I just picked this up from a local store or from Amazon. And so I'm using the tip that makes it look really spirally, and it also came with piping bags. So you can buy these separately pretty much anywhere. So I just happen to have the ones in that package for this. And so for this, I always tend to cut the hole too small the first like 1 or 2 times. So I'm just gonna snip it and try to fit my piping tip in, and trial and error. I'd rather snip it too small than snip it so big that my piping tip falls out. But you can see like my piping tip is not gonna fit in there. I'm gonna push the bag back just a tiny bit more, snip it again until I get that tip coming out of the bag. So close. Okay. One more little snip here, and that should be good. Okay, so you're going to want your tip in place, ready to go. So there's my tip. And then I use a trick with a cup. You just set your tip in the cup, push your bag in. It may help with a larger cup depending on how big of a piping bag you have and how much you plan on piping. So I've got my bag ready to go. And then I'm just going to fill the bag up and scoop on top there, and then we will package it up. I end up scooting that all down. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit more and then push it down to get it further in the bag, hopefully. I'm going to bunch up the top there, twist, and it's going to slowly work its way down to the end. And now that is ready to go. So now you're gonna grab your fully cooled cookie cake portion. I ended up making this yesterday, and so I've got my piping bag ready. I do have more whipping cream in here that I'm going to smear on here just to have a very thin layer over everything. And that is gonna be our base where everything sticks. And I will probably have more that I can use for piping also. I'm just gonna make a layer so that all the fruit will stay in place. And it does not have to be perfect. The fruit is going to cover up the majority of this, and then we're going to pipe around it as well. So that's one reason why the cookie cake itself can be a little bit wobbly and not perfect, because all of it's going to get covered up. So I brought in my other camera angle here. So that's what it looks like to go with right now. I am going to kind of plan out what I'm going to do just a little bit with this. I want the star area to be this top corner, so I'm going to just kind of mark the edge a little bit so I know to kind of fill up this whole section with the blueberries. And then I'm just going to do that. I'm going to grab the blueberries and start filling it in. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Just gonna kind of line up this section. And I did have a little lunch goblin in here. Stella, the toddler, ate some of this fruit while I was washing it and getting it dried. She went to town on some of it, so I don't have quite as many raspberries as I had planned on having. That's okay. We'll make it work, and I may have more rows of strawberries than I have of blueberries, just because of that. I'm trying to just kind of line them up, but they don't even have to be in a line necessarily. They can be all over the place. Olivia helped me make the last one, and she just put the blueberries wherever, and it worked. It still looked wonderful. It does not have to be quite in a row or anything. You'll see that one looks a little bit wonky, so I'm going to set him aside. We'll use him in case of emergencies, but I'm going to try not to use that one. And now, for this part, I just like to pipe in some little star spots here and there, just to make it look a little pretty. And again, these aren't perfect, they're not in any particular spot or order, just for a little bit of extra decoration. And that's it. So for our stripes, we're going to alternate raspberries and strawberries. So we'll do a piping row, a fruit, a piping row, a fruit, all the way until we finish out the whole thing. And I do need to cut these strawberries. I decided last time I really liked them cut in half versus just slices of strawberries, so that you get like a full half of strawberry showing versus the inside of the strawberry. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna set this up here for just a second and work on cutting those strawberries real quick. So for this, I'm just going to basically cut off the tops and cut them in half. And these ones can be, you know, raised up a little bit. Depends on how you want to cut them. If you want to cut them on their flat side, if they're, you know, larger strawberries. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut all of these guys. And whatever we don't use will be snack time later for the kids. All right, now that those are all cut, we are ready to fully assemble everything. So for this piping, I am not a piping expert. I don't pretend to be. I just kind of wave up and down to make it look a little bit squiggly, and the piping tip is really the star of the show. So I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I just do my best. Make a little like row of icing, a little bit decorative, but again, it doesn't really matter. Because it's going to be delicious anyway, even if it doesn't look perfectly piped. So we've got our row. We're going to do a row of fruit. Let's see, we're going to try to stick them all like the same general area to make a pattern. They're all kind of pointing to one side. And go all the way down the row. Then we're going to pipe another row of our whipped cream. And then we're going to have a row of strawberries. And again, I'm going to just point everything the same general direction. So they kind of make a pattern across the flag. And there's one small piece there. And then we're going to pipe all the way across again. We've got a little pattern going. Now another row of icing. It looks like we're going to get one more row of strawberries in here. So I'm going to go ahead and pipe the last row right against the edge. There we go. And then we have a little bit left for the kids' snack later. And there you have it. It is done. It's super cute for a holiday party. And it was a hit. I mean, it's cookies and fruit and whipped cream. You can't really go wrong with that. So it's super easy to put together. And it can definitely be all just whipped up from things you get to the grocery store. You have to make your own cookie cake part of it. You can just buy the cookie dough. So it makes it super easy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.